Anne is joining us also. Okay. Hello and welcome to this webinar celebrating the International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day to all of us. We have a very interesting panel today, and we will learn both about Earth observations and the stories of some very influential and important women, I would say. So thank you all to all the speakers for joining us on this Saturday. I'm super excited to learn more about you and your pathway, your road to becoming in the position you are today. I will start by showing you the agenda. It's a discussion, it's a very informal kind of webinar, but you will learn both about Earth observations, as I said, and the personal stories. We encourage you to participate in the dialogue, in the discussion at the end of the presentations. Do engage in the chat. If you come, you get questions in your head, write it in the chat so we can pick it up so it doesn't disappear. I will ask you some questions in the chat, and we would really appreciate if you could answer so that we enforce our network of related to women in Earth observation in this instance. So with that, I will start to introduce you to GEO, a little bit about GEO and the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion subgroup. And I will then start to share my screen. And I will have to be multitasking here, admitting people into the room. So bear with me. Let me see, screen. Like, can you confirm that you see the agenda for today?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. So we will start, as I said, with an introduction to GEO EDI, for those of you who don't know that. And then we will have this series of stories from women that has been empowered by the use of Earth observations. We start with the younger generation, Kalamkas Yessimkhanova. She is a PhD student studying in Hungary, but she is from Kazakhstan, and she will elaborate on that. We have Florence Rabier from ECMWF, which is European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. And she's French, but living in the UK. Marie-Francoise Voidrot, she's an innovation director of the Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC, from France. We have Tinyiko Ntshongwana from South Africa. She's a deputy director of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, and Joanna, which is Deputy Director-General of the European Commission's Directorate-General for Research and Innovation. She is in Belgium and in Malta, and she is a co-chair of GEO. So we have 4 co-chairs in GEO, and she's representing the European Union. And we have 2 other members of the program board. We have Marie-Francoise Voidrot and Tinyiko Ntshongwana. So those are representatives from the GEO community. I would like to add that GEO community is really open to everyone. We encourage everyone, and you can be very flexible in the sense that everything is based on volunteer contributions. And this webinar is part of welcoming new members also to GEO. So a few words of this specific subgroup, as I mentioned. So the GEO subgroup for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, it came out of an observation that we had very few women represented in our panels and committees and whatnot. And we thought that that would be good to do something with that in order to use all the talent that is in this community. We also saw that there was not a fully well-distributed geographical distribution, so also encouraging the engagement from around the world. It was mostly Europe and America that was, or the US rather, that was, dominantly contributing to GEO, and we wanted to do something about that. And in general, we wanted to be very inclusive. So this is the 5 pillars framework that we then started out with in this GEO subgroup. It was established in 2021. It's the idea of equality, diversity, and inclusion is fully integrated at all levels of GEO. And it was our suggestions then from the program board. I was also a member of the program board at that time, and our proposal was very well received by the GEO plenary and GEO ExCom and the plenary. So and today's strategy is also reflecting all of these values, if you like. So the 5 pillars are oversight and accountability, so that we make sure that we know the distributions, and the community leadership and advocacy, creating a welcoming environment, outreach and engagement, and empowerment through accessibility. So those are the 5 pillars. And this webinar is one of the activities of this group. So with that, I will stop sharing. And I remember now that I didn't say my name. My name is Bente Lilja. I'm from Norway. I mentioned all the other countries. I'm from Norway. And I have been a long-time member of the GEO community and currently co-chair of the GEO EDI. I'm very happy to see all of you here today. And we will start now with hearing these exciting stories. And the first out is Kalamkas Yessimkhanova, and she will tell us all about her pathway so far. So Kalamkas, also happy birthday. She has a birthday on the 8th of March. So there's a double celebration here. So Kalamkas, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much, Bente. And let me please share my screen. So, yeah. So once again, thank you so much. And it's an honor for me to speak today. And today, I'd like to talk about my journey of choices, challenges, and lessons that I've learned. And yes, I'm Kalamkas. I'm from Kazakhstan, but I'm a PhD researcher in earth sciences at Florence University. It is located in Budapest, Hungary. Before I start, I want to just quickly mention what I do in earth observation. So my research topic is focused on mapping the effect of climate change in Kazakhstan and in modeling its future tendencies. And for that, I use different Earth observation data sets, such as ERA5, climatic research unit data, collection of climate models provided by CMYP6 ensemble, and also meteorological records provided by Kazakh National Hydrometeorological Service of Kazakhstan. And of course, all these data are available there. We need a tool to analyze them, to produce a new information, new data, or like in my case, it's maps. And I use for that Google Earth Engine. And one of my contribution is developed a Köppen climate classification mapping tool. This is a Google Earth Engine based web application, which allows to visualize Köppen climate maps for the whole globe. Also, you can modify the code that allows to produce for specific area, a specific country, or specific geographic location that you are interested in. And based on the data available, it can be also produced for historical period or for the future. And Of course, as we are here to talk about our journeys, or I want to share the choices that shaped my journey. And the first major choice that I made, it was getting a doctoral degree. And it wasn't just another degree for me, it was the knowledge that I wanted to develop, to get a deeper knowledge, to put myself into international research environment, to get the expertise, meet the new colleagues, probably with the different background, with the different knowledge. So that is why I am from Kazakhstan, and also I'm affiliated with Hungary. As the knowledge itself is powerful, but it will be more powerful if we apply it, share it, and expand it. And we can do this by seeking opportunities. It can be conferences, workshops, trainings, internships. In my case, one of the transformative experiences I had, it's an internship at the GEO, where I was working with the GEO Knowledge Hub team. GEO Knowledge Hub, it's a digital repository for Earth observation applications. And as one of the milestones, was moderating Open Knowledge and News session at ODOC in China last year, where I realized just consuming information is not enough. It's more powerful, and it's also empowering when you engage yourself into discussions in global conversations. And that's why with this, I want to highlight that empowerment comes from stepping forward when you look for the opportunities, such in this case, in my case, it was internship, because opportunities, they don't wait for you. You have to look for them and going for it. Another choice, I would say it's not only just choice, it's also a motivation for me, bringing knowledge back home. By this, I mean, as my research is focused on climate change, of course, we can research on the whole globe, but I wanted to focus on my country. And as you can see on the picture, there is a map of Kazakhstan where it's highlighted regions at risk in the future, that this part of the region, like the south and southwest, will transition to new climatic zones. So this area will be deserted in the future under high emission scenario. So I think by exploring new tools, new data, you can make valuable information that will help to your community to adapt to climate change, to develop strategies, and also empowering others by sharing what we learn, not only probably in the research context, but also sharing your experience, your story. I think this is very important. And as we work with Earth observation data, we need tool, we need technology to analyze, to process all the data we have, also to collect the data, to analyze, and nowadays the technology is evolving very fast. Now we are speaking about AI and the technologies we have in Earth observation. And I think it is not a choice, it's no longer a choice, but it is a must. So finding yourself in learning also phase by keeping up the technology, learning new softwares, new tools, probably, and coding languages, etc. It is very important. And as of course, I made some choices in my life that, that brought me to where I am now. There are always some challenges, and on this slide, I highlighted those that are that really resonate to me. And it's like one of them is complex data, complex tools. When I started my PhD journey, I was a little lost in a lot of information and a lot of data. and a lot of tools, coding languages. So not to get lost in this, but for that we need to learn more, sometimes learning beyond the background that you have. As my research is focused on climate change, and I'm coming with a background from geodesy and cartography, I had to learn new things, for instance, like precipitation patterns, like about temperature. So this is very important. And finding the right opportunities. As I was mentioning about ODOC in China, and internship generally in a GEO, you know, we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of things, conferences, workshops. There are a lot of also internships out there, but focusing on what you actually need, what fits you perfectly, it's really difficult, and it's also time and energy consuming, all this application. That is why we should not be saying yes to everything. Just focusing on all the opportunities should be aligned with your goals, with the work that you do. In my case, with my PhD. So this is also another aspect that I want to mention. And as this journey sometimes might be really difficult, it's really difficult sometimes staying motivated. As for me at the moment, it's been 4 years and 7 months of doctoral studies. And sometimes you get tired, you know, like as the progress is slowed down. But of course, reminding yourself from where you started, from where you are, for what you are doing, it keeps you motivated. And I also, I'm inspired from my colleagues that I work now. It's, yeah, somehow, you know, reminding yourself what you are doing. And it's also, of course, we do it just everything for ourselves. And looking back, I would probably say some advices to my younger self. One of them is, I would say that we should not wait for the perfect moment. We should just act, and the perfect moment never comes. It's now. Because sometimes I really regret that I started my PhD a little later. It could have been done earlier. So this is one of the advices. And of course, be open to challenges. Step out of your comfort zone. It can be PhD in your home country, or it can be in another country. Doesn't matter, but be bold, be open to challenges, propose new ideas, test them. And along the way, you have to also work on your skills, new tools, I don't know, writing, presentation skills. This is also very important. And please don't hesitate to ask questions and seek help from your senior colleagues, from your PhD colleagues, from mentors, collaborate. And if you're a PhD student, there is also your supervisor who is there to guide you. And trust yourself, believe in your abilities, believe in your ideas. You can do it. And I would highlight this last point, taking care of yourself, because prioritizing your health, sleeping well, because all the success, all the goals that you achieved are not going to be long-term if you're exhausted, if you are sick. That is why we really do have to take care of ourselves. And I want to end my presentation with this free aspect that, of course, empowerment comes through different forms, but for me, it's a science. I think this is the base, the core, and access to information, as I use in my PhD research, open data, open tools. This is for me very important, I think, and technology. Of course, nowadays we must use technology, and we have to keep up with the technology. With that, I would like to thank you, everybody, and Bente.
Thank you so much, Kalamkas. This sounds to me like a best practice how to go through with your PhD studies. It was a very good and inspirational story, Kalamkas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But moving on, we have more stories for you. The next one is Florence Rabier, and from a weather forecasting organization, ECMWF. I'm delighted to give you the floor, Florence.
Okay, and let me share my screen. And here we go. Okay, so basically, I believe in Earth observations, and that's what I've been using all my life. So GEO is a good fit for that. But the Earth observations, I've always used them for numerical weather prediction. So I'm a meteorologist. I studied meteorology from the beginning of my study, math physics for a couple of years, and then meteorology. And then I moved between Météo France, which is the French Met Service, to ECMWF, which is the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. It's located in, the headquarters is located in the UK, and that's where I am now. So from the beginning of my PhD, everything I've worked on was basically how to use Earth observations in weather forecasting, in numerical weather prediction. So I will introduce a bit, in particular, how many observations we use at ECMWF. And this is really using a lot of Earth observations. So these are maps of what we use in every 6 hours to incorporate that to the model before doing a forecast. A lot of observations, and in particular satellite observations. What is great, we're talking about diversity today. It's of course different types of diversity. But what is lovely in weather prediction is that we share these observations from around the world through, in particular, the World Meteorological Organizations. They come all the way from China, from Europe, from US, etc. And we use all these observations exchanged in real time for the benefit of weather forecasting. And this has always been the case, but there haven't been so many observations in the past. And you can see here how many more observations we used in the last 20, 30 years at ECMWF. Before 2000s, there were just a few satellites, and then the number of satellites exploded. And this is the number of sensors we use. So how many instruments on top of how many satellites? We are now at about 100. So very diverse Earth observation. And this really helped to improve the weather forecast. So I'm not going to go through very long in that one, but basically what we say is that weather forecasts improve by 1 day per decade. So the forecasts now are about as accurate as the forecast 2 days before 20 years ago. So the forecast for day 7, so in a week's time, is as accurate now as the forecast for day 5 in 2000. And you can see that in 2000, there was a huge jump in the forecast quality. So when it's high, it's better. And what you see as well is that the thick curve and thin curves, which is the quality of the forecast in the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere, starting to go closer together. So from the 2000s, we can predict the weather globally over the globe. But before that, the quality was better in the Northern Hemisphere because we relied on conventional observations. But thanks to the Earth observation and satellite observations and how we use them, from the 2000, we can also make a good job in the Southern Hemisphere. And this is very important because we don't just do weather forecasts for some countries. We actually can do global weather forecasts and share that and benefit all the countries in the world. And you all know weather forecasts can be used for a whole range of things, from weather advice and protecting life and property. You can also use them, the same tools for predicting air quality, which is quite important as well, and for doing climate monitoring. And Kalamkas has already showed that she's using some of the reanalysis from Copernicus from the European Union program. So the same tools and all the same observations can use for so many aspects of life. And I think that's what I find very inspiring, that how all this science and Earth observation can be used for the benefit of all. What's also super exciting is that we have always new methods, and we've been using these Earth observation and physics and mathematical models for decades. And now the advent of artificial intelligence also is taking place in meteorology. And we also have new artificial intelligence machine learning models that can actually sometimes get better results And in particular, what's, I think, very motivating for tropical cyclone position error. We know that tropical cyclone can be devastating. So that's a bit what we're doing. And I try to say that really Earth observation and science has been driven my career from, as I say, my PhD to now. So how did I start? Well, it started with an interest in math, I guess, and also liking the weather, just more on a sort of, well, it's nice to know what weather is going to be so that we can go out. But then it drove me to this motivation for science for a practical purpose. And I think that's really what's been driven a lot of the colleagues I know in numerical weather prediction, because you're using a lot of data, you're using a lot of physics, you're using a lot of computers. And so it's super exciting, but you do it for a practical purpose. So my biggest challenges, I try to just find a couple. There were more, but I think shyness and lack of self-confidence. This was very much, I was super shy when I was a child. And this sort, I carried that with me throughout my career. Of course, with age, this is fortunately something you manage to overcome, but it's not so easy. And sometimes I could get really annoyed when I witnessed misogynistic behavior. And, you know, we're talking about Women's Day. And sometimes you do have some comments or you can see some behavior that really are not okay. And then I think about Michelle Obama, and when they go low, we go high. So just learn how to not get too wound up about it and just rising above it. An advice I would give to the younger me, knowing what I know today, a lot of what Kalamkas said resonate in me, so I can adhere to everything she said. And I would add the fact that, yes, so seize opportunities, choose them right, but really grab them. And you will have setbacks. I mean, everybody has setbacks. And sometimes you will apply for something, you won't get it, you will be super annoyed to start with. But sometimes you realize afterwards that this might lead to a better outcome down the line. And I know that, for instance, if I had had a job where actually I didn't get it, I wouldn't then have seized other opportunities, and which actually make me, I think, much happier than I would have been in the other opportunity beforehand. So don't stop at hurdles and think, well, this probably was for the best, and look for other opportunities. I think I would have told myself that. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florence, both for giving us this refreshing view on Earth of weather forecast. You know, I come from Norway. We are obsessed, like in the UK, I think, with the weather. So, and I was very, it was very interesting to see you explained and showing how our weather forecast has become much better thanks to Earth observations. So I think that was a takeaway that we sometimes forget to remind ourselves about. So that was, thank you for that, and also for your sharing your personal story, because I think we really need to share that it's okay to have hurdles. It's okay not to be perfect. We overcome it. And that's, you know, that goes for all of us, I think. So thank you for sharing your particular take on that. Now we are moving on to another perspective of Earth observation, of weather forecast, because I know that Florence and Marie-Francoise started from a very similar point. And Marie-Francoise, we are excited to hear your story now.
Well, thank you very much, Bente. And I'm very delighted to share this panel. I mean, Florence said that what Kalamkas said resonate with her. What Kalamkas and Florence said resonates so much with me. And I see that I forgot, well, I will be live. I have no slides, so I'm free to adapt what I was planning to say. So first, I'm Marie-Francoise Voidrot. I am a director of the Open Geospatial Consortium. That is a global organization which is member-driven and bring together the industry, the government, and the academia to collaborate on building solutions to real complex issues. And we saw the complexity out of Kalamkas' talk. And these issues require interoperability. So we do that through the use and the development of open standards for geographic information mapping and location-based technology, considering that everything that happens somewhere is connected, and the connection is through the location. Considering my background, I don't have PhD. I have 2 degrees, one in meteorology, where I studied with Florence, and one in computer sciences from what we call in France the Grandes Écoles, which are engineering schools that have been defined, created from the end after the revolution. They started after the French Revolution in 1794 or 95, so a long time ago. And this system develops in parallel to university. For 33 years, I worked with the French Weather Service, with Météo France, like Florence. And Météo France is a French public administration in charge of weather forecasting and climate services. So I was a civil servant. And during all these years, I focused on designing, leading the implementation and managing projects, focusing on highly operational decision support systems. Initially, I developed tools for the weather forecasters. Then I expanded my work to support the French forces, and other institutional customers, such as the European launching platform in French Guiana, Air France, the National Electricity Board, and so on. And after this, I led the efforts to open Météo France data to the public, ensuring that the compliance with the INSPIRE European Directive. And I also managed the development of scalable cloud-based mobile applications and website to meet mass market demands. So in fact, during all these years, you can see that I went from weather forecasters for whom weather was really the focus, the core of their work, to other people for whom meteorology was very impactful, but not the core of their activity, and to mass market. And during all these years, I have always focused on implementing very user-centric approaches. So the data and the technology were evolving, and I had to take that into account. But my focus was really to make users happy. From 2009, thanks or because, I don't know, of the INSPIRE Directive, I became involved in the Open Geospatial Consortium, co-chairing the Meteorology and Oceanography Working Group to promote the interoperability and the further integration in meteorological data and systems. And then here I discovered the power of interoperability, really, to break down silos and to unlock new opportunities. In fact, I did all my career in between computer sciences applied to meteorology, and the use of Earth observation and meteorology to support decisions from everyone. And I decided to leave Météo France and join OGC, broadening my focus beyond meteorology through and focusing more on Earth observation to apply it for agriculture, biodiversity, energy, and all domains. And this transition has really confirmed and reinforced my belief in the power of collaboration, data sharing, geospatial, and open standards to drive global solutions. So, considering the choices that led my career, I would like to say that this was a lifelong plan, but it would not be true. Why? Because the work I'm doing today did not exist when I chose my studies. So I'm ending my career. And so in the last 30, 40 years, all the technology, all these domains have evolved so much that I can tell you that when I selected my studies, we had no idea that this would happen right now. I liked and I was naturally drawn to science, particularly Earth observation and meteorology, because, as Florence said, it's real-world impact. It's very impactful sciences. And I went to Meteo France, I think, because also I value the sense of purpose that comes with the public service. Even though Meteo France, OGC is a not-for-profit and is not a public service, my involvement with OGC and with GEO, the Group on Earth Observation, aligns very much with the same values. Working for the benefit of impactful members and the society at national, regional, and global levels is very, very motivating. Now I reached the end of my career, I said before, and looking back, I feel truly lucky to have had a career that remains meaningful, impactful throughout the years, and that is completely aligned with my personal values. So if we talk about, if we want to talk about the challenges, it's difficult to pinpoint just one challenge. But in my early careers, I felt like probably what Florence was meaning, that I had to work twice as hard and get as many degrees as possible to be recognized in a technical field where women were really the exception. So beyond my main degrees in meteorology and computer science, I pursued every possible qualifications of software design, software developer, system engineer, production plant management, even English and Spanish proficiency certifications. I did a lot of degrees, and I'm not sure it was really necessary. Maybe I like to go through exams. That's the point, maybe. But I think I needed to develop the self-confidence Florence was talking about before. And I'm not sure all these degrees were needed. So if you don't go through that, don't worry. But I think it develops the self-confidence, and this is always valuable. Considering also the challenges, sometimes they were not obvious until they could appear in small details. I think about also what Florence said, and they can appear in unexpected moments. I remember once that attending a meeting where at the end, the guest speakers were each given a gift. And this gift was a beautiful silk tie. And here you are really, you don't know how you have to react, you know. It's a very small detail, but it spoke volumes. I don't know if women were really not necessarily expected at the level of the meeting. I have to say that I have many of these type of stories, and taking distance, they can be funny, but there are some times like that where you remind how important it is to challenge assumptions and open doors for others and follow up the type of this type of webinars, because nothing is granted, you know, and nothing is I'm talking in things that happen in France or in the US. So these are countries that are considered as quite advanced on this topic. So another ongoing challenge, I have to say, is also to balance the personal life and work, because when you're a woman, very often the moral charge, I would say, of the family remains on your shoulders. I have 3 children, which are grown up now, and I am a grandmother. And my work has taken me all over the world, as it was said before also. Meteorology and Earth observation requires international collaboration, and for that, we often have to travel. And I want to deeply be grateful to my husband and my parents for the support along the way, because you always need someone to be able to be more flexible and more agile and mobile. And in fact, each stage of life requires to redefine a tricky balance, keeping agile and adaptable. But then I think that this mindset of being agile and adaptable has helped me also to navigate with the ever-evolving field of innovation. So maybe being able to manage a lot of constraints and a lot of activities keeps you very agile. And you need that, because working in technology innovation is a permanent challenge. You are out of your zone of comfort forever. If I had to give advices to my younger self and to you, or to the young who arrive, I would say that there are many of them. There is space for everyone. and for every skills and talents. Some people may treat career like a competition, ranking themselves above or below. You may hear that everything has already been done, or AI will replace human ingenuity. You might feel that innovation is out of reach, or that everything has been done. This is completely wrong. There is a lot to do. There is a lot to do, and opportunities are everywhere. And you can make a difference. You can find your space, you have to trust your abilities, and you have to keep on learning all the time, as Kalamkas has said. You need to believe in your capacities to contribute, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. You have to listen to others, but you don't have to hesitate to express your ideas. The best, and what I recommended also to my children, is to invest in areas that inspire you and things that you like, because if you like your work, you will work a lot, and it will be fun, and you will make a difference. You will become better, and you will really be good in your work. I think that passion and curiosity are very big drivers in our domain. So I think it's also important to build a strong and positive network around you, and to trust your unique perspective. Your skills and dedications are needed to shape the future of Earth observation and beyond. So there is plenty of possibilities, and I encourage each of you to be part of shaping it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Marie-Francoise. A very exciting story. And you started by highlighting the fact that we need to have all of these Earth observations work together, interoperability. And you have dedicated your self to that for over many, many years in different with different hats. So it goes, that's the common denominator. And also, I think it's correct to say that you are very focused on the humans, and the users. That has been a leading star for you in all your endeavors. So thank you very much, Marie-Francoise, for sharing that story with us. And you are all, the three of you have many the same kind of advice to yourself. So I think we are reaching an agreement here. Now we have been on the European continent, and now we will shift and go to Africa, South Africa, and Tinyiko from Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. She will now share her story. Tinyiko, please take the floor.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. And yes, just greetings to everyone, and also to the other ladies that have been sharing their stories. So as has been mentioned, I'm from South Africa. My background is not in science. My background is actually in politics, international relations, and also journalism and media studies. So I kind of have an approach of sharing my story whenever I participate in these kind of engagements. So I hope that you'll engage me a little bit in that. And so my focus is a little bit different to everyone else, but I think yeah, so my approach really will be on the storytelling side, because I think sometimes it kind of gets the picture across. And so just to mention that, you know, coming from South Africa, my experience is quite interesting, but also unique. And I think that it's also a strength in this kind of space. And having come from South Africa, one of the elements maybe that has defined who I am is also the past, the past that we have in South Africa. And primarily, for instance, apartheid. And the reason why I mention apartheid, which I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, the system of racial discrimination, is that it was not just about racism, but it had other multidimensional aspects to it. And one of those aspects was actually gender discrimination, where women in South Africa during apartheid, irrespective of their race, were actually second-class citizens. But the other aspect of it was that during the apartheid period, women also kind of became voices of authority and solidarity in the struggle against apartheid. And I think today, you know, International Women's Day is really about solidarity. And I think the idea of solidarity is not just women working together, but it's about humanity working together. And I think it's a very important message. And in many ways, one of the reasons why I think I'm even on this platform is because of solidarity. And so I'm part of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation in South Africa. I'm a deputy director there. And my scope of expertise is really just around global governance, science, technology, and innovation cooperation, particularly within the African context. And so I also do a little bit of science diplomacy. So my focus areas are really touching on different areas, but mostly science, technology, and innovation cooperation, and science diplomacy and international relations. And so how I got here was that in 2021, I was approached by Lisa. Some of you might know her. She used to be the interim chief executive officer at the South African National Space Agency. And she approached me, I think it was December 2021, to basically become a member of the GEO program board. And one of my concerns at the time actually was not whether I could participate or not, but rather the fact that I was 3 months pregnant. I still had 6 months of pregnancy left and 4 months of maternity leave. So I was a bit worried whether I'd really be adequately able to participate as an active member of the program board. And when we discussed it, it wasn't an issue. So that was quite great, because I think that women in many different spaces tend to face a lot of barriers to entry. But I also think that solidarity amongst women requires us to really take an active approach in actually reducing those barriers to entry and sometimes even eliminating them. So I think that's very important. And so that's how I got into the group on Earth observation space, the GEO space. And that's how I became part of the GEO community, particularly through my participation in the GEO program board. And then what I also do in my capacity as the Deputy Director responsible for Africa Multilateral Cooperation at the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation is to really advance the continental science, technology and innovation agenda. And this includes supporting, from a country perspective, the African Union's policies pertaining to science, technology and innovation. And one of the key policies and strategies that they have is the AU space policy and AU space strategy. And this is very important in the sense that it really provides the context for the continent, for Africa in particular, through which Earth observation can actually become a game changer for the continent, particularly just in terms of its developmental trajectory. And so the policies also highlight, for instance, the role of Earth observation in resource management, in disaster prevention, in climate action and environmental monitoring, in urban infrastructure planning, and also in peacekeeping and security. And so our role as the Department of Science and Technology, and what we really strive to do, is to rally our partners around the continent, other African countries, to rally them around the importance of the role of Earth observation. And not just in terms of access to information, but also in terms of its role and applicability to economic transformation. And this is something which is a big priority in Africa, because I think sometimes we tend to think a lot about the traditional issues of poverty and education, which I'm not saying are not necessarily important, but I think that Earth observation, through the work that I've done, and particularly in GEO as well, is cross-cutting. And it cuts across the entirety of a society's development. And so capabilities around Earth observations are very important. And so this is kind of the message that we are getting out there into the continent. And also what we've also supported, which is also enunciated in the African Union Space Policy and Strategy, is that the key interventions include the development of skills and expertise, especially because this is what's required in order to strengthen Africa's capacity in Earth observation applications. And then also building Earth observation infrastructure. That's a very important and strategic intervention. And then also enhancing knowledge sharing and promoting public awareness and policy engagement. And so, to a certain extent, this then interweaves into why as South Africa, we also play a very active role in the Group on Earth Observation in GEO, because there is a lot of congruence in what GEO seeks to do with what we are pursuing at a national level, but also with what we're trying to pursue continentally through some of the thinking that I've shared from the AU's policies around space and also Earth observation. And so I think and our participation as South Africa within GEO, we really have a big vested interest, and particularly to rally the rest of the continent along, and to really promote what we're trying to do within GEO to our counterparts in the continent. And I think our approach has really been to take a stance of AfriGeo also being the key that unlocks the door. And so even through, for instance, AfriGeo, we've also tried to promote the role of women in Earth observation, but also the benefit, to highlight the benefit of Earth observation for women. And if you look at Africa, women are a huge population. So I think the population of women actually outnumbers the population of men, including the youth. And so women and the youth are a competitive advantage. And if you look at the biggest economic sector in Africa, it's actually agriculture. And women in Africa make up the largest number of smallholder farmers. I think it's about 60 to 80% of smallholder farmers in the whole African continent are actually women. And so Earth observation is a big game changer within the agricultural sphere. We know this. There's a lot of information about that I'm not going to go into. But at the same time, it really just points to the fact that women need to be empowered in that sphere, within the Earth observation sphere and the entire value chain. Not everyone is necessarily going to be a technical specialist in it who is a smallholder farmer, but there are certain uses of the information that are very important and are a game changer in the kind of technology that is used, but also in the decisions that are made for agricultural productivity and also profitability as well. And this is very important because ultimately, women in Africa, they are the ones that they provide food for their communities as smallholder farmers. They contribute towards economic productivity, but they are also essential in terms of food security. And so, yeah, so this is just the broad scope of the kind of work that I am engaged in through my capacity as well in the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, and also through the GEO Program Board. So then maybe just to go into the other questions. So what has been the biggest challenge for me? So for this question, I kind of looked at it a bit more broadly within the broader context of global governance and also where the world is at. And a trend that I've kind of noticed over the last couple of years is that I think global solidarity is getting threatened a bit. It's a bit threatened. And this is something that you are seeing in a lot of different spaces. But I think that within the Earth observation space, we really need to observe this very carefully, because if there isn't solidarity amongst nations, if there isn't solidarity amongst companies or institutions that actually provide the EO data, if there isn't solidarity around the regulations and the principles, the licensing, it really would cause a lot of fragmentation. It would impact other bigger global imperatives, like, for instance, commitments around climate change, and the list goes on. So I think that the big challenge, just from where I sit from a global governance and international relations, is the fact that solidarity is something which is very important, but seemingly also threatened. And so I think as practitioners, as policymakers, maybe the students in the room, it really also requires repositioning, just in terms of the kind of approach that we take. And then to be a bit more practical, I think that something which I've noticed and during my career is also that sometimes as a woman, you can say something, but it won't be heard. But when a man says it, it will get heard. And so I've kind of had to really just train myself to communicate differently and to position my communication in a way that is more impactful and in a way that really gets people listening. So I think that's been a challenge, which to a certain extent has been a good thing, because then I've had to reposition myself and be agile and really move out of small-minded kind of thinking. And then what would I say to my younger self? Definitely where you come from is not necessarily your ending. So whatever your background is, especially if in your background you come from a place of being disadvantaged, that is not your ending, that is not your destination. So I think that's been one of, yeah, that's something I would say to my younger self. Something else which I'd also say is that, Tinyiko, trust your thinking, because the world needs to know your thinking. The world and the nations need to hear your thinking. So that's something else I would tell to my younger self. And I think another aspect, especially for women, is that leadership is incredibly important. And I don't think that it is necessarily about a position. I don't think that someone spoke about competitiveness and competition in their career. So it's not about your position. It's not about your ranking, but rather leadership is the way that you think. It's your ability to influence processes. And I think that the where we are at in the world today, I think there's never been a more better time to be alive. But I also think that right now, with where we are, Earth observation is incredibly important. And even the technology around it, the applications, and everything around it, the interoperability elements, it's really becoming a cross-cutting element in many sectors. And I think that this requires leadership, and especially people that are forward-thinking. So that's my story. Thank you so much, and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you so much, Tinyiko. So interesting to hear your perspectives and story, of course. I just have to say, I picked up something. You talked about solidarity a lot, and particularly nowadays. And that reminded me that you are using the word solidarity as a value. But in GEO terms, it will be the GEO data sharing principles. The data sharing principles came from a more utilitarian perspective, that it was, a point in itself not to waste too much time, by doubling, having double services, and to collectively fill gaps. But so you add, so it's the same action, I would say, but you added this solidarity value on top of it. And I think that is something, a big takeaway from your stories. So thank you very much for that, Tinyiko. I have made many notes, and we will see how, so I will comment more. I have more to say myself, but now, since you came from a political and journalism view, so different from the technical, we now are moving on to Joanna Drake, which is also having a more political position, I would say. Joanna, are you with us, by the way? I think I saw you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, Joanna, you are, of course, one of our co-chairs in GEO, and you are representing in this context the more political perspectives. And you have a very exciting background. I will let you speak about that yourself. So, Joanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bente. And I want to wish all women and all men Happy Women's Day, which should be also every day. I really believe in this joining up together, because I think we can do it very well. And I think it's one of our fountains of strengths. That I think is really important, that we need to nurture and curate more. So my background, I am from a very small island in the middle of the Mediterranean called Malta. Just in case you never heard of it, we are a member of the European Union since 20 years now, just over 20 years. I have to say my background is law. I specialize in European law. It's not the reason that I believed in the future of my country to be in the European Union. This was something that was very much, that was innate, I think, in my teenage years. And this is what I worked for all my life, and what I took on as my life mission in the career world, of course. And the personal world, I think, I had other priorities. But in my career world, this came to me rather out of the blue, really, in terms of career as such, because what I actually worked for my ideals was never really married or reflected in what I was about to do with my career. Suffice it to say, and this is one of the main messages I want to put across immediately, is yes, it's good to plan. We spend a lot of time reflecting on what we'd like to do. Where is it the best thing to go for? Is it AI that's the sexiest subject today? I have to say that I don't make these calculations, and my life has been a proof that you go for what you believe in and what you think you can contribute to, without closing any doors a priori. This is maybe in parallel also the story of myself and Earth observation. I'm certainly not a scientist, certainly not technical, certainly not knowledgeable as the ladies who have been giving us their backgrounds to now. I feel very, very dwarfed in their knowledge and in what they know about the system and what it can actually deliver for humankind. So just to close this parenthesis on the parallel, I never, ever, in 6 years of law in the University of Malta, I never, ever touched European law. But because in parallel there was this political movement going, for my country to join the European Union, and I was very much throwing my whole self there, it just sort of happened that an opportunity came for me to work in Europe, and actually it was Brussels, when I was hardly even a graduate of law. And then I went on to do the master's. So it was the other way around, it was the passion and the go for that actually then evolved or devolved into career. So it's a good place to be in, that you are actually living your mission through your work as well. And I say this because I think not only women, but maybe more women are pressured to actually make up their mind, where they like to be. Men sort of are seen to be more predisposed to be versatile and to be amenable to any industry or any sector, because they're men and there'll always be open doors. Whereas women will always have to think, 100 times before that, or made to do so. And this is what I'd like to drive as a message. Listen to yourself first and believe in yourself first. If this is what you love, if this is what you feel connected to, even if you don't know why you do, go for it. And surround yourself with people who will help you believe in yourself. And now I'll just move on to Earth observation. Well, you may or may not know that I do work for the European Union, for the European Commission, for the last 20 years. Before that, I have to say that all my career, whether it was academia, whether it was in the legal circles, whether it was in industry, it was always connected to the European cause. But I was never a technical person in the sense of, engineering, computing, big data. The science world was a little bit like not far away. I always loved it, but never was really my field. But because of what I'm doing for the European Commission right now, I am Deputy Director-General, so I'm number 2 in a big department which does research and innovation for the European Commission. And we have a huge budget of 95 billion over a 7-year period, which we hope that this year will actually be more, because I think more and more we need, frontier research and innovation, also coming from there. As part of my portfolio, I was told, we've got this Earth observation, GEO world, which sort of we are supporting heavily, and obviously is important for us. And, can you please do that part? And I said, call me, like Earth observation, what can I contribute to that? So there was I, like closing the doors on myself, actually. And, I had a conversation with 1 or 2 people I trust, and I said, yeah, and, they sort of believed in me more than I was believing in myself. And they were saying, yeah, you go for it, you do it. And I said, okay, I'll try, and you see what I can contribute to this, industry and sector full of very bright people, and very techie people, who are also in love with what they do. So, of course, it takes you time, especially when you're representing, like, an institution like a European Commission, which is, very visible on the world stage and very important politically, and you say, okay, what can I do, here? I have to say, and I have to also confess that I did say I was in industry, and I was in the mobile phone industry. I worked for Vodafone for 5-6 years before I joined the Commission. And again, I was a lawyer. You know, what can a lawyer do in the mobile industry at the time when the mobile industry was really a mobile industry? Today, it's much more than that, as we know. But you find your role, you know, you go for it, you get excited by it, as long as you've got those butterflies in your stomach and you know that you can, you know, relate to the industry, you believe in it, and you see yourself wanting to really hurriedly understand it all. Of course, you need the technical people. Of course, you need the engineers. Of course, you need the people around you with the knowledge and science. But you have to be the person who can see through that. You know, how can I bring value to the society? How can I bring value to the world? How can we be even innovative? What can we innovate? And as a woman, I think, because we have, I think, certain innate ways of looking at things. You know, I'm not saying one is better than the other, or, you know, I'm not trying to make those comparisons because it's not the message that I want to put across. But I do think that we do have certain innate predispositions, like, for instance, we want to communicate, we want to be inclusive, we want to reach out, we want to make sure that we're being understood, we want to be practical, we want to get real results on the ground, we want to be concrete, we want to be perhaps pragmatic in getting there, we want to simplify, we want to be also getting, you know, safety and security, because I think we are, again, wanting to, you know, to bring that about. Somebody before, I think it was Tinyiko, who mentioned peacekeeping, for instance. Yeah, of course, you might say that it depends on character, it depends on approach. But I think, you know, when we are given a challenge, and I think, you know, me being in Earth observation, me being in the mobile industry in the year 2000, where it was really like on the up, you know, I mean, the company I joined at the time was buying, taking over actually, big companies, you know, big German companies, big French companies, American companies. So it was really on the up. And I said, what do I know about this industry for me to actually contribute to? So you feel like there's this big thing out there that you don't understand. But I can tell you, they had been the best years of my life, because you see that with the power from within yourself, you know, you obviously you need to engage, you need to commit, you need to give a lot of yourself, and you need to really take the time, not only to respect, you know, the people who know the science, but actually to also help them bring out, you know, what actually they could do with that. And I've seen this so much in the last 3.5 years that I've been involved in Earth observation. I have to say that just before I came to this particular job on research and innovation in the Commission, I was in another department on environment. And there, of course, I was, you know, again, dealing with a lot of environmental knowledge and scientists and researchers. Again, expert in their field, and not only expert, but evolving experts as well. And at the same time, you know, like close to the policy makers. So they had to, again, make that transition, that bridging. So, of course, Earth observation made me understand, you know, where all that information on biodiversity, on the oceans, on pollution, on oceans, on trees, on forests, where we're getting all that information, and what do we need to invest in order to do that. And of course, I knew about all the satellites because Europe invested heavily there. I mean, if I mention Copernicus, I think a lot of people recognize, even through that name, the kind of investment that has gone on. But of course, I was never in a position to even have to understand, you know, what we're really talking about and what can we contribute to the future as we envision it. So when, of course, I started meeting these people and rubbing shoulders with them, not only was I more interested, but I was even more excited that, you know, another new world was open to me. And then, of course, it takes a bit of time. You have to be humble. You have to really like take a few steps back and take your time, take distance sometimes, and spend some time on reflection. but never doubting yourself. Always seeing this as an opportunity for further empowerment and also a fountain of opportunities that you can actually bring about to the industry, of course, with a lot of humility, not saying that nobody else had thought about it, but really insisting, on the acupuncture points, as I like to call them, where it matters, where it really matters for the world, where it really matters, for the African continent, for the South American continent. What are their priorities? How can Earth observation serve their priorities and serve them to be even more informed, to be more empowered? I mean, at the time when I was in the mobile industry, I will never forget, there was a front cover of The Economist, as you know, quite a respected journal, and it had brought the picture of a black lady, I think, or a black gentleman, I don't recall, in Africa, set in Africa with a mobile phone, and talking about how the mobile industry was actually giving so much freedom. It was actually giving empowerment to not only in terms of telephony, but in terms also of business opportunities, for many people who thus far had never even thought that they would ever be entrepreneurs. So the link between mobile industry and entrepreneurship, especially in certain continents and in certain, I would say, age groups in that continent, to me was a revelation, that you think about it in that way. And this is the way I also see at observation. Today, we talk about, bringing about the public good through Earth observation. And I think, we are living in a world which is ever so uncertain, ever so, continuously changing, ever so, disruptive in many ways. But I think, the sense of empowerment has to come from within. But thankfully, there's technology, there's science, there are the apps, that actually empower us to even be more precise, to really, know how to put these facts and data and figures, nicely on an app, on, maybe through institutes and through who we respect, like books as well, and people who can actually help us be empowered and make certain decisions and also influence other decisions and also stop decisions that go in the wrong direction. And I think all this is so powerful that I think that, we can make, so much of a difference. I'm not saying that the scientists don't think about this. Of course they do. So please don't take this at all, in what I'm saying in this direction. But people like myself who are not the scientists will immediately, want to and quickly go towards, making this happen. And I know that, for instance, if I take Earth observation and, the post-2025 strategic plan and strategic priorities, we as Europe were pressing on certain things like open access to data, like making the data work for citizens, really make it something, that really makes sense for any citizen, for anybody, who's just living in the world that we're all living in. And I saw that, the scientists around me, and I'd start with the scientists around me in the European Commission, more and more, they were mentioning this themselves, as being the priority. And it was not the discourse, that I was hearing a little bit before. It was more like in technical language, but because I am so stupid on the technical side, they had to make the bridge to make me understand. But once I did, then the world was open to me and I could sort of communicate back, if you like, with my own language and, and that became sort of the common language that was shared. I know this sounds like a little bit like science fiction, maybe, or maybe, wishful thinking, but I really think it's not. And from this, I think, from what I could say, in terms of advice, because I need to close also now to give space for others. So first lesson is don't ever close doors, any door. that you might think, oh, I will never understand this. What can I do in this? What will I be good for? No, don't ever close the doors. You never know. Remain curious, remain visibly curious. Surround yourself with people who give a lot of, give you confidence. You have it within you, but many times, especially women, I have to say, they really, really put themselves down. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, close family, and, she was going through a rough time. She's in the film industry. In the little island I come from, the film industry is quite big because it has a lot of scenic backgrounds and scenic, locations, perfect, for people who want to exploit it from the point of view of a film director, etc. And she's going through a tough time, and I would tell her, I was telling her, never allow yourself to pull yourself down. And one of the techniques I actually like to mention, because I use it myself when there were other people, by the way, who want to put you down and make you feel very small. And these people will always be there, and they can be women sometimes as well. Let's also face it. One image that I shared with this lady yesterday was, imagine you going up to space. I mean, space is something that we also deal with in that observation. And you have to wear your spacesuit, zip up that spacesuit and say, nothing will affect me. What you can send missives, you can say whatever you like, but it will not touch me. I will remain strong. I have the spacesuit on, and I zipped it up. And I said to this lady, never, ever, draw whatever people are saying around you onto yourself and make you feel smaller or less capable. You are not. You have it in you. So bring it out. Just protect yourself for that moment. But then surround yourself and make sure you keep networking with people who will always empower you. And again, like Marie-Francoise, I also have to thank those people who nearly now, I'm going to be 61 in April, in my 61 nearly of age, they have been really propping me up and leveraging, what they saw in me that I didn't see. And I really am thankful for that. So don't underestimate yourself ever. Don't ever let yourself, to absorb maybe the bile that others want to, want to give to you and maybe direct towards you, where that's spacesuits.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for such an inspirational story. And I think I will summarize your story like follow your passion, but be humble at the same time. I think that's two keywords. Your great intervention here, and you also show that you don't have to come from a technical background. You and Tinyiko both don't come from a technical background, but you could still contribute to Earth observation and be empowered by Earth observations. So excellent! I'm so inspired right now by all of your stories. I'm looking at the time. Let's give ourselves 6 minutes so we end approximately when we for what we scheduled. And first, I would like to give the floor to each of you, the speakers, to ask each other questions if you have any. To one or the other. I will give you this opportunity now. Yes, Marie-Francoise.
Yeah. Well, so I worked a bit with Bente on building the panel, and as a matter of fact, we wanted to invite several with different backgrounds from technology, science, and law and policy, just to show that this diversity of skills, all of us, and you could hear that, could find a place for the patient and the views and the value they can bring to this domain. So thank you very much, because I really felt that obvious.
Yes, indeed. And I see we still have some, it's also possible to raise your hand in the audience. Yeah, Kalamkas, you have already raised your hand. Kalamkas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just want to thank everybody who joined our webinar, and especially speakers that they shared their experience. And me, as I'm just, I would say, in the beginning of career, I can see that I'm on the right direction. It was really for me inspiring, and I make some notes, and thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Kalamkas. There are some common denominators, and also and also some variations that we in our background. There's Andrea. Do you have a comment that you want? Do you want to take the floor, Andrea? Andrea Sivakova? You wrote a message in the chat. That's why I'm maybe you are too shy.
May I just
yes
comment? Yes, so it was really nice to listen to all of you. And I think just like Marie-Francoise and also Joanna, the support of the family and the support of those who believe in you is very, very important. I don't think I would have gone to some opportunities if I didn't have a nice colleague who told me, why don't you apply for that? And I thought, me, I mean, never. I'll never be good enough for that sort of role. And they say, well, yeah, I know other people who would apply, and why not? And I think this encouragement by either your family or people in the field is super important. And I think the situation is not evolving fast enough to my taste. But responding to Marie-Francoise and the silk tie, I've actually been to a panel on the International Astronautical Conference last October in Milano. And they were actually on the panel, we all received a present, and the guys had a silk tie and I had a lovely silk scarf. So people now know that there are women on panel or giving presentations, etc. So I think it is, we've earned our place, and it's not easy, but I think we are there and we're there to stay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Marie-Francoise again.
I just want to say that the host who gave the seal tie to all the speakers, I think, was more embarrassed than myself after. I'm sure they progressed, and on the following time, they gave some scarf also. They had some scarf for that.
Yeah, and so I'd like to come back to GEO in this respect, because remember, so the GEO EDI was established because it was too few women, to put it that way, in panels and committees and the visibility. And I think we can also celebrate today improvements, because that has changed quite a bit. Don't you think, Joanna, that we are better now in putting together panels and committees with more balanced representation?
Absolutely, I think you're absolutely right. More and more around the table, we see women. It's still dominated by men when it comes to representation, but I think it's a matter of time. For instance, I was in Rome recently, a couple of occasions, and I met different players because of the Global Forum happening in May in Rome. And I saw, in fact, how many women are actually contributing, within the local organizations, if you like. I'm sure it's the same in other countries. I'm sure in France, for instance, I know there's Isabelle who comes from the French part. She has been there from there, and she was an inspiration to me. Like Florence here as well, and Marie-Francoise. So it is definitely getting better, but I think the more we have to think in terms of, long term, we need to encourage many, many more women to get involved in Earth observation science from a very early age. It has to be a career path, open and visible, early. I mean, when you look at the accountancy firms and the law firms, they go and snatch, they're career cradle snatchers, as it were, from a very early age. I'm not sure there is so much proactivity in the science world. I'm not sure. I might be wrong about this, of course, but I think we need to be a little bit more proactively promoting the possibility of that and selling that dream. And I don't mean that in a commercial way. I mean selling the idea of getting the interest, up from a very early age.
And I think all of you here are illustrating that it is actually possible to have an influence, an impact on society if you follow the path of Earth observations from many different starting points. It is because for some people, not me, some people ask themselves, how can I be useful? How can I, contribute to society? That was not, I'm saying I was completely driven by understanding the universe. That was my driver. I didn't care about usability at the time, but look at me now. But I think that for most people, they look, and particularly here, we have several stories of women that are driven by having, an impact, do something good, right, for society. And I think it's possible to communicate that better. As Joanna, we should be more proactively promoting this aspect of science and technology, that you actually have a big impact. You can have a big impact, maybe even bigger than if you are a nurse and you are caring for a small group of people. This is my perspective, than doing Earth observation from space and everything. You are impacting many more people. You, Joanna, impacting many more people with your big budget and the European Union as your field, and even globally now with GEO. And that goes for all of you. You have huge impact in the way you are working. So yes, we should. I think that could possibly be something that we are can communicate from this webinar, that we should be more proactively recruiting the younger generation for Earth observation. How about that? Yes. And Ola, you were asking, Ola, you were asking, is there a youth group in the GEO community? Yes, there is. Kalamkas, maybe you can help out connecting Ola with this group.
Sure.
Suddenly very practical here.
There is a community of practice, GEO Youth Community of Practice, that you can join, and they have monthly a meeting where they can discuss how youth can be involved in the GEO activities, about different opportunities. So probably I will share the LinkedIn group or the emails of the contact person in the chat.
In the chat, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be good. Yes, and Ola and everyone. So GEO EDI, Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion, is actually addressing youth and indigenous people as well. I mean, this is all integrated in the work that we are doing in GEO EDI. And as a GEO community, we are open to all volunteers. So please let us know if you're interested in engaging. Ladies and men, thank you so much for this very interesting webinar. I have been, honestly, I'm really inspired. I love listening to all your stories. Thank you so much. Luckily, we are recording this, so you will be able to enjoy it again and again if you like. Until the next time, thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend and happy Women's Day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well done, Bente. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lovely meeting you all.